Yeah, you're welcome along to the Irish Angle. That's just Johnny Ward and Emma Nagle on the show today with Vincent Finnegan away. And today we're recording this on Tuesday, and Emma is actually on the way to the removal before the funeral tomorrow of Michael O'Sullivan, who so tragically passed away over the weekend. And we are recording this on a Tuesday as a consequence of not recording on Monday. We'll just do a short podcast today, just to pay tribute to a remarkable young man who I was privileged to have met many times at the racecourse. And obviously, Emma is from the National Hunt heartland of the Mallow region, where Michael is from, and the O'Sullivan family. This is, when I got into racing 21, 22 years ago in 2003. We had three deaths in 2003 that I'll never forget: Kieran Kelly, Sean Cleary, and Timmy Houlihan. And I probably wasn't in racing enough at the time. I certainly wasn't, I suppose, to realise the effect it would have had on people. This is a little bit different in that I've been involved now so long, and I know how, even from racing in recent days, I know how much people have been affected by this, as it became apparent that Michael had a real struggle on his hands. And sadly, at the weekend, he lost that struggle, not without his family making the remarkable gesture of donating his organs to save the life or lives of others in a truly remarkable gesture in the absolutely, the darkest of times imaginable. As a father, I can only imagine what his parents are going through, and we send our absolute sympathies to the whole family, to his brother Alan. And I haven't stopped thinking about Michael since that incident in Thurles. I was just coming back from a holiday that day, and I can only say I'm happy that I didn't see the race, but it quickly became apparent that he was in difficulty. And I spoke to a trainer that night who relayed to me how much difficulty he was facing even then. And I found actually racing, I was in Dundalk last week. I found the whole thing very strange because just the mood was so somber, and I wasn't at a jumps meeting, so I can only imagine what it was like. But I imagine it was very difficult for the jockeys to go on as normal, as they were conscious of the difficulties that Michael faced. And just before I go to Emma, I'd just like to pay a quick tribute to Michael. Michael's last winner was at Down Royal, I suppose 3 weeks ago, or give or take. I happened to be working at that meeting, and I spoke to him afterwards. He rode Young Lucy for Tony Martin. One thing that always struck me about Michael was he'd address you by your name, whether that was in an interview or whether he was talking to you in passing. I spoke to Michelle Goulding in SIS, going to the races at Dundalk the other day, and she pointed out that this was a thing with Michael. He'd always go out of his way to say hello to you. He was a guy who had the world at his feet. He was extremely mannerly, an absolute gentleman to have anything to do with. The type of fella that would make you proud to be involved in racing in some shape or form. And the devastation that I think the National Hunt community is feeling, the jumps scene, obviously, and even the flat scene as well, and everyone in the area around North Cork, I can only imagine. I don't think jumps racing will ever be the same again after this. It's really devastating what's happened at this stage of his life, and the jockeys know the risks that are involved, but at the same time, that's really small comfort at this time. And we have to be strong, I suppose, around the family, as the National Hunt community and the jumps and racing community can be over the next few days, and obviously many years ahead, because this will be difficult for them. But they will be left in no doubt whatsoever about how much this guy meant to everyone, including you, Emma.
Yeah, I apologise for being in my car now. I'm on the way down to Lumberstown at the moment. I'd imagine North Cork is going to be brought to a standstill for the next period. My heart breaks for the O'Sullivan family. They're such an extremely well liked and well respected family in racing in Cork, all over the country, and even outside of racing. They're a fantastic family, and Michael was kind of a shining light of that, I suppose. He was just a gem of a young man. He achieved so much in his short time with us here. He climbed the heights as a rider, but even outside of his talent as a rider, he was just such a fantastic young man. I remember hearing about him when he was a young lad. His cousin Owen used to come in riding out with us, and it kind of sounded like they always knew Michael was destined for the top. And it was fantastic that he was able to achieve that, I suppose, so quickly in his career. And outside of the saddle, then kind of like what you were mentioning, I didn't know him on a close personal level, but whenever you'd meet him, he'd stop and have a chat. He was always so friendly. You'd leave a conversation with Michael with a smile on your face. And yeah, it just breaks my heart. I just want to send all the condolences to his family, the O'Sullivan family, his colleagues in the weigh room, which it is not going to be easy for them going forward now, and his close friends and his partner. It's going to be it's just heartbreaking. I remember the first time I probably met him properly. I had heard about him as a young fella, obviously a real talent kind of coming through. You'd always hear about them, but I remember he rode a horse first in a point to point. He must have only been just 17, and it was a horse first time out. And you could just tell from then he was just such an old head on young shoulders. It was hard to believe he was the age he was, and his talent kind of shone through from the start. And just his character, just a fantastic young man. It's been a really tough week for everyone in racing, I suppose. I just hope that everyone around him can find strength and pull through. Because it's the world is definitely going to be a worse place without Michael O'Sullivan in it.
Lovely words, Emma. Yeah, just to read out some of the notice on RIP.E, and it's a wonderful facility now that you can go and leave your condolence there, which so many will and already have in relation to Michael. He'll be very sadly missed by Bernie, William, Alan, Granny Mary, and I suppose it always hits home when your grandmother is alive to see these sad days. Aunt Kathleen, Mary, Anne, Marguerite, and Marie, uncles Connie, Willie, Sean, Andy, Patsy, Eugene, Patrick, and Michael, aunts-in-law, uncles-in-law, cousins, Charlotte, his many friends, as well as his weighing room colleagues, and the wider racing community. So you could, from a big family, obviously, and I really do hope that they can rally around each other. I suppose just a point to say as well, Emma, this really hasn't sunk in for the likes of me who really didn't know him at the level that we'll say, like yourself. I knew him from meeting him at the races and that, and I find it very hard to take this in. For all that he was obviously fighting a real battle for over a week, I still find the finality of it desperately hard to deal with when he's only 24 years of age, and the shattering reality of the beautiful images of him over the last couple of days. But he had a lot of friends in the weighing room as well, very close friends, and I suppose it's important to point out, Emma, that those people are looked after as well by their friends at this time, because they're going through really horrible time without their friend, and I guess it's important for those people to be thought of as well and looked after.
Yeah, it's going to be a really tough time for all the lads riding in Ireland for quite a while, I'd say. I've never heard anyone say a bad word about Michael O'Sullivan. Like, even, he kind of shot to prominence, I suppose, so quickly after turning professional. I remember he rode a double for Robert Tyner. It might have been his first or second week after turning, and obviously went on then to Cheltenham, riding winners in Cheltenham, riding the Supreme Novice Hurdle winner so early in his career. But I think probably just don't think you could say about his character, the testament to it never went to his head. Like, he was still the same young fella who I met in a point to point when he was 17, as he was after he was, climbing the heights and hitting fame in Cheltenham. He never changed, and yeah, it's going to be really tough for his friends and family, and I just hope they can find strength and support in each other. It's probably one great thing about the racing community; they rally around each other and help each other out, and everyone close to Michael will need that support now, because it's just heartbreaking times. So it's hard to put into words.
Absolutely, I mean, and if you are affected by that, if you rode in that race, you were at Thurles on the day, even if you watched it on TV, don't be afraid to look out for help as well and talk to people, because these are devastating times. I suppose, just I'll ask you, I mean, just about his talents before we wrap up. But I was noting Marto Davison, who was involved in the Gerald Leary yard, speaking, and he was putting up little sort of prayer emojis every day whilst Michael was sick on Instagram, and it was heartwarming to see. And he pointed out when he'd ask him what's the plan today before ride, he'd say just to keep it simple, and that's what Michael always strove to do. He was a tall lad, he was a very talented rider, and I was minded of the conversation we had about how he got the job with Barry Connell, and it was initially from riding Marine Nationale, I think, in a bumper, and I'll always remember him saying to me he was walking the cows home of a summer's day, which is something I did a million times myself. He's walking the cows home, just looking up, injuries and declarations, and he just got on, sent a text more or less to Barry Connell, and that's how that beautiful relationship started. And he was from a farming background, like myself, real humble people, immersed in racing, and it's utterly devastating, to be honest. Just before we wrap up, Emma, just about his that ride on Rue Nationale, and how he'll be remembered, because there was a lot of, I guess there was a lot of pressure that day. The horse was extremely well touted, well fancied, and he sort of made it look like he was riding him, in a point to point, or in a maiden hurdle somewhere.
Yeah, he was extremely cool-headed young man. I suppose he was bred to be a fantastic talent. His father William rode the winner of the Fox Hunters all those years ago for his uncle Eugene. His cousin Maxine, a brilliant rider. His cousin Owen was a brilliant point-to-point rider when he rode. Brother Alan, another great talent. So racing was really in Michael's veins, and I think, like you said, it was kind of coolness personified was probably the way I describe Michael's riding. He was obviously an extremely talented horseman, but just the way he was able to handle that pressure, and nothing ever seemed to faze him. Extremely humble, and just, you'd very rarely say that Michael did something wrong on a horse, which is something you can't say too often. He was a shining talent in the weigh room, and I suppose if there's any kind of solace he's friends and family and anyone close to him can take, I suppose it's how much he achieved in 24 short years. He probably achieved more than many will in a lifetime, which is maybe something that they can hold close to their hearts, because there's not many young riders who can achieve as much as he did in such a short space of time.
Thanks a million, Emma, and thanks to you for watching and listening for our own little tribute. We're also thinking of the families of those who've passed away in racing, and we're not going to get into the families' names, but we're thinking of you as well. If you've lost a son or a brother, or so on in recent years in the racing, I know this kind of is a tough time for you as well. But ultimately, we've seen with the tragic deaths in racing, how racing is unbelievable to rally around. I'll never forget the atmosphere the day of the Pat Smullen fundraiser at Curragh. Michael is now joining Pat Smullen up above, two of the greats, and just a reminder of how short life can be and how tragic it can be for some people. But we'll never forget you, Michael.